Good morning, everyone. I'm Quinn Whiffen with Vertical Measures, and I'm here hosting VM's monthly webinar series. Today's webinar is titled Google's Algorithm Updates, What You Need to Know to Rank in Google in 2014, and will be presented by our very own Vice President of Client Services at Vertical Measures, Mike Huber. Possessing over 20 years experience in marketing and advertising, Mike started out in the newspaper advertising business and has worked in online marketing for the past 15 years. Mike has been involved with the development of organic SEO tactics and extensive PPC programs that have increased revenue and traffic significantly for his clients. Before we get started and I hand over the presentation to Mike, I just have a couple of notes. Today's webinar will be available for replay by tomorrow afternoon. We'll be sending out a recording of this video along with the slides that Mike has, so you can all go back through everything because I know there will be a ton of information today. If you do have any questions you'd like to ask Mike after his presentation, you can go ahead and just take a look at your question applet on the webinar interface and use that, or you can also tweet us with the hashtag VMWebinar. Any questions we don't get to, we'll be sure to try and answer via email. And of course, if you're having any technical difficulties, I just recommend attempting to reconnect. Also, lastly, before we get started, if you do stick around to the end of the presentation, we'll be announcing some exciting news about a new free guide that we've been working to put together for you all. It's very much related to what Mike will be talking about today with recovery and Google and algorithm updates and basically the whole changing landscape of SEO. So stay tuned for that. So I guess that's all my notes, and I'll go ahead and hand it off to our presenter, Mike Huber.
Hi everyone, Mike Huber here. We will cover a recap of Google, their 2013 updates, their impact and significance. We'll also talk about how you can take steps to mitigate the negative impact that those updates have done for your site. And then we'll also talk about how you can maintain and increase your traffic for 2014 and some specific action steps and tools that I'll introduce to you to help you along the way. In and among our conversation today, we'll talk about how SEO will change for 2014 and beyond. So during this past year, and actually for almost 2 years now, Google has been making continual updates to their algorithm. And it almost seems like every time we react and recover from one, there's another update. It almost feels like we're playing that old whack-a-mole game with Google. So some of the significant impacts of updates this year were from Panda and Penguin. And Panda is actually an update that targets thin content and duplicate content on websites. Penguin targets web spam and unnatural links that are pointing to websites. And I'll talk a little bit more about both of these updates as we go through this presentation. One of the other things that has happened as well is Google actually introduced a rewrite to their algorithm, and it's called Hummingbird. And what Hummingbird does is it tries to look at your search and contextually figure out the meaning. So rather than looking at a string of keywords and serving a search up based on just keywords, it's actually trying to discover the meaning of your search. And if that wasn't enough, they've also done a keyword not provided in your Google Analytics. So it used to be that you'd be able to see all the keywords that people were using to search and find your website, but now Google is not providing that information. So even though these updates, the rewrite and keyword not provided, are different, they all have one thing in common. And that one thing in common is that they're driving webmasters to produce great content, and they're actually changing behaviors of SEOs, so they'll focus more on content as opposed to trying to manipulate the Google search. So one of the things that you have to do, first of all, if you've been affected, is to actually know if you have been. So if you received a notice from Google about unnatural links, that's one way you could find out. If you noticed a drop in your rankings or traffic, that's actually another way to know. Another way to know is if your keyword search terms have suddenly disappeared from search. So the first thing that you want to do is find out if and how you've been affected. So you want to make sure that you're solving the right problem before you take any action. So again, sometimes it's easy to see. This is a graph of Google Analytics, and it shows a precipitous traffic drop that coincides with a Google update. So again, it's really easy to see the impact and know which update has impacted the traffic. Another way to know, as I mentioned, is if you get this unnatural inbound links message from Google, that's a sure indication that you have a penalty. And this comes through WEBMASTER tools, which is attached to your Google Analytics. And for those of you who haven't connected your WEBMASTER tools, I strongly recommend that you do that, because Google Analytics gives you some really good information, and WEBMASTER tools will append that and give you some other really good information to help you manage your traffic in your website. Sometimes it's not quite as easy to tell what happened and what's affected your traffic. I'm going to show you a couple of free tools in these next slides that you can use that will help you identify which update impacted your traffic. This first one is fruition.net. And if you go there, all you have to do is add your URL and give access to your Google Analytics, and they'll produce a nice graph like this that shows you with the green dots a positive impact that an update may have had, and the red dots are negative impact. So this is a really easy way, a visual way to tell which of the updates have impacted your website, whether it's a positive or negative impact. The other nice thing about this, if you look down below the graph, is there's a grid there that you can actually click on details and find out more about that specific update. So you can actually get a little bit more granular and find out exactly what's happened to your traffic on that particular update. Another really good tool to use is Penguin. And if you look at these slides, I've also included the URLs to these tools. And as Quinn mentioned, we'll be sending this out so you can actually come back and find these later on and go to the different tools. But Penguin is a really good tool, and it's like Fruition, but they display the results a little bit differently. So again, you just throw in your URL, give access to your analytics, and what this shows is an overlay of the updates and the dates where they happened, and then behind that is your traffic grid. So if you look in the middle of the screen there on that grid, you'll see a drop in traffic, and it actually coincides to a Google update. So these are really good tools that you can use to find out which update has impacted your site. Another really good tool to use is ahrefs.com. And again, you just put your URL in and search links, and it serves up some really nice graphics and really good information about your backlink profile. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through this. But those are three really good tools that you can use to figure out what's going on with your site. Another thing that you might want to do is a search in Google for site:mywebsite.com. And the reason you might want to do this is PANDA is the site-wide penalty, whereas Penguin can affect a single page, a directory, or your entire website. And if you do site: and your website name, you'll be able to see how many pages you still have indexed in Google. If you've got a complete penalty, you won't find any results. If it's just pages or directories within your site, you'll be able to determine what's missing in terms of the index and help you further define what your problem is. So let's unpack the updates a little bit more, and then we'll talk about some of the things that you can do to mitigate any negative impact. So again, Panda targets thin content, and what it did is it reduced rankings for low quality sites, and initially it was called the farmer update because it really targeted content farms, and the content farms were simply companies that wrote really short, simple articles, and they populated the internet with those. So Panda has targeted those. In fact, you won't find many of those listings at all. ehow.com was actually one of the bigger content farms. If your content has low value to users, if it's copied across the internet on other sites, it's impacted your website, and again, it's a site-wide penalty. So that's the downside of Panda. The upside is that for some sites it actually improved their rankings because those are the sites that had really good high-quality original content. They have in-depth research and information. So if you have really, really good content on your site, Panda didn't impact you at all. So if you have thin content and you want to know how to write better content, and you want to know what Google is looking for, I suggest that you go to the Google Webmaster Central blog. It has a lot of really good information and discussion, either based on the updates or based on general things that people want to know about and how to improve their rankings. So if you look at this page, it says what counts as a high-quality site. So there's some really good, rich information on Google Webmaster Central blog to help you produce better content. So how do you fix thin content? Well, first of all, you want to identify the thin content on your site. And when we talk about thin content, those are really, really short pages, and they may be 150 words or less. We understand, though, too, that in some cases thin content is appropriate. 150 words may completely answer a question or may be exactly what's needed on a particular page. But also know that if you have a preponderance of thin content, it can tip the scales and start the penalty for Panda on your site. So once you identify the thin content, you want to set about thickening that. And there's three things that you can do really easily. You could add additional content, you can add photos and graphics, you can add video. Really, you can add anything to those pages that are going to make the site or make that page more relevant and have more content on it. Another way to get out of the Panda penalty is to actually add new pages of great content that will offset the number of thin content pages that you have on your site. So one of the things that we run into quite frequently with our clients is they have unintentional duplicate content on their website. And it's caused by a number of things, and we'll just cover a couple of them in this today. One of the simple things is the canonical tag on a lot of websites is missing. And what this does is tells Google to use the www or the non-www version of your website. If you don't have a canonical tag, Google's looking at those two different versions, and a lot of people have identical content for their home page, and they also have identical content for a lot of their other directories simply because they haven't put the canonical tag on the pages. We also find that people who are updating their site, they may have a sandbox or a staging server, and they've forgotten to put the no index, no follow in that directory or that subdomain. So what happens is their original content on the regular site is showing, and so is the content from the staging server, which shows as duplicate content. Another thing that happens quite frequently is pagination. If you don't include this little snippet in your head tag, you could be creating duplicate content every time someone does a search on your site. And we've seen this as a frequent way that unintentional content is created. So we also find people that have categories or URL paths that they've used for the same page, and they've either named the category differently or they actually have a different URL, but the content is exactly the same. So what you want to do to help and improve your traffic is to actually find that duplicate content. And there's a couple of things that you can do to really help you find that simply. These are three different searches that you can do on Google. So you can do your domain.com in URL, and that will help you find how many URLs have a particular keyword phrase. You can do domain.com in title, and that will show you how many of your keywords are in a particular title for duplication. And then you can also do domain.com with a minus in front of www. And what that will do is it will show you any content that's showing from staging sites or subdomains, and it will help you find some of the redundant content that you may have on your site. So those are different things that you can do with Google Search. You also might want to download Screaming Frog. Screaming Frog will help you identify duplicate titles on all the content that you have indexed in the search engines. The thing I like about Screaming Frog is it gives you spreadsheets that you can easily manipulate to determine what you have in terms of duplicate content and really help you organize and process that information. Flagspotter.com actually will help you identify other sites that are using the exact same content that's on your site. So if you're an affiliate, you'll be able to see some of the other websites that are using the same content that you are, and you'll also be able to determine if anybody has scraped your site. So those are some of the things that you can do for Panda to help you mitigate any negative impact. Now let's talk about Penguin. Penguin actually comes in two different flavors. It's an algorithmic or a manual penalty. You'll know if you got a manual penalty because you would have received a message in your Google Webmaster Tools. So the algorithm may be impacting you as well. But really what Penguin is trying to do is it's targeting web spam, and one of the things that we found that impacts our clients the most is exact match anchor text. So they may have a lot of links pointing to them, and they're using their most effective keyword phrase, and if you're over-optimized for that particular phrase, it could set off the penalty. So the other thing that happens too is that a lot of sites that we've seen have really low quality websites pointing to them. And it could be article marketing, it could be blog spam. They may actually have keyword stuffed on their pages for internal or outbound links. Another thing that can impact are irrelevant sites, sites that have no relevancy to the particular products or services of a website. And again, the low quality sites and links from sites that are outside of Google's terms of service. So these are some of the things that Penguin looks at, and if you have any of these in your backlink profile, they may be impacting your traffic. So what can you do to mitigate the negative impact of Penguin? Well, the first thing that you want to do is you want to analyze your backlink profile. And there are a number of tools out there that you can use to aggregate as many backlinks as you can find and put those in a list so you can manage and process that. So the first place to start is actually with your Google Webmaster Tools, because you can download a list from that. And then we use a number of third-party tools that help us append that Google Webmaster list, because that webmaster list will only give you a sampling of your links. It won't give you all of them. So we use Majestic SEO, we use Open Site Explorer. You can also use Bing Webmaster Tools, Link Research Tools, Ahrefs, which I had mentioned earlier, and then Cognitive SEO will help you with developing your backlink list. So really what you want to do is use any tool that will help you discover and rate the quality of your backlinks. Because what you're going to want to do is find out as many links as are pointing to you so you can fix the problem. So here's how you do that, the process. You download your backlinks from multiple sources, and one of the things that we do is we dedupe our list, because if you're using multiple sources, you'll find that there's a bunch of duplication in that. And you want to create a list and make sure that you keep this list, because you're going to use that to record your actions, the actions that you take for each one of those links. So you can organize and sort by link value and metrics. And what we do is we sort from healthy links to toxic or bad links, just so we have an idea of the amount of work that we're going to have to do with a particular backlink profile. One of the important things to do too is to determine the ratio of anchor text to total links. And as I had mentioned before, that oftentimes the penalty is simply because you have over-optimized anchor text. So for example, if you're selling blue widgets and 60% of the anchor text from all the links that you have is for blue widgets, you're definitely over-optimized. So you really want to take a look at that. And we found that you really need to visually inspect each site, because the metrics in and of themselves will give you a good indication if it's a good site or a bad site, but that visual inspection is really helpful as well. So once you have your list and you organized it and prioritized it, you want to determine what action you should take for each one of those links. So there's really 4 things that you can do. The first thing you can do is prune the link, and what I mean by that is you would just contact a webmaster and ask them to remove the link from the site. The second thing that you might want to do is reclaim a link. So I had mentioned the over-optimized anchor text. So if this is an over-optimized link, you might contact the webmaster and ask them to change the anchor text. So instead of a head term like blue widget, you might ask them to do a long tail term so that diffuses that over-optimized anchor text. You may ask them for a branded URL or a naked URL that will help you again to diffuse that over-optimization. You may also find that you have links from sites that are outside the Google Terms of Service, but you're getting really good traffic from them. So in that particular case, you may contact the webmaster and just ask them to follow the link. So Google won't count the link pointing to your site, but you'll still continue to get the traffic from that particular website. And then the good news is that some of the links, or hopefully most of the links that you have, will require no action at all. So the next step is to upload your disavow file. And Quinn had mentioned earlier that we have a free guide, and if you want to know how to do that, that free guide will give you the steps along the way. It's really granular in details. But the upload a disavow file, and this is for sites that would not remove your links. And then you want to file a reconsideration request. And the reason I have an asterisk there is that you don't want to file a reconsideration request unless you received a manual penalty. We also recommend that you often review your links, and then part of this too is that we want you to write great content so you can earn links to the site, and those should be natural as they come to you. So I mentioned earlier the keyword not provided. So within Google Analytics, they're not going to expose that keyword data any longer. It makes it a little bit more difficult for us as internet marketers because that keyword data is really pretty rich and we can understand how people find us. But we also have still page level data that gives us referral sources. We also have ranking data so we know which pages are resonating with our clients and with searchers. And we also have AdWords data that we can go back to. So all is not lost because the keyword data not provided. So that really brings us to what the future holds. So we've kind of looked at the penalties, we've looked at some of the tools and some of the actions you can take to recover. But really what the future holds is continuing updates and tweaks to the algorithm. And I think really what this is doing is just pushing us more and more towards writing great content. So for the rest of the presentation, what I want to do is just talk a little bit about some of the things that are solid action steps that you can take to grow your traffic over time. So first of all, you want to make sure that you've got the basics covered. So clean up your mess, identify what your problem is, and then move on to this. So make sure that you're covering basic SEO. Title tags and descriptions are still important. They're not as important as they used to be, but they're part of the display on the search engine ranking pages. So if every single title tag you have on your site is exactly the same, you want to update those because the content on every page of your site isn't the same. So that's just basic SEO. Get rid of the duplicate content. I've given you some ideas on how to search and find that. You also want to look at your internal linking and make sure you're not keyword stuffing and you're not using over-optimized anchor text. And if you're worried about the search engines finding your pages and that's why you're doing all your internal linking, just put an XML sitemap up on your site and that will allow the search engines to find every single page on your site. We also suggest that you include microdata on your site, and on the next slide I'll show you what I mean by that. Clean up your backlink profile. I've given you some ideas on that. And another simple thing is add social media sharing buttons to your site. You'd be amazed at how many people still have not done that. And then the final thing in terms of the basic is move to responsive design. And responsive design is actually a website design that adapts to the screen size. So that makes your site look good from desktop to mobile. And if you haven't updated your site and you're planning to, in terms of design, make sure that you look into responsive design as an option for that update. So I'd mentioned microdata. And microdata is just exactly that. It's tags that you put on your site. The users won't see this. This is kind of behind the scenes for the search engines. But what it does is it gives you one more opportunity to tell the search engines very specifically what your page is about. And it will help you with your ranking. And if you look at that box with the link on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, that is actually a really great blog post by Moz.com that explains the use of the metadata and what you should or could put on your pages. So another thing that you can do to help build traffic is link building. And because of the Penguin update, a lot of people think that link building is actually dead, and it's not. Link building still impacts search engine rankings. It's still the coin of the realm. If you have really good links pointing to your site, it helps with your traffic and helps with ranking. So the rules for link building actually have not changed. They're exactly the same as they used to be. What you want is links from high-quality, relevant sites that have authority that point to your site. So if you can do those things in terms of the quality and the authority, link building is still a positive way to get really good results. I'll tell you about some quick techniques and some tools that you can use for link building in the next couple of slides. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier in terms of reclamation. That's a really good way to get a link or to diffuse some over-optimized anchor text. But in my description of reclamation here is more of one where maybe you've moved a page and you want to reclaim that page. So maybe it was a 301 redirect and you're trying to reclaim that exact page. So you contact the webmaster and ask them to change the link that they already have pointing to your site. One of the easiest ways to get a link from another site is they may have mentioned you and it's an unlinked brand mention. Contact that webmaster and ask them for a link on that brand mention. List pages and resource pages are also really good places where you can request links. If the website is in your category or in your niche and the list makes sense for you to be on, it's a real simple matter to contact those webmasters and ask them to include you on those pages. So one of the other things, techniques that we use is if your site's been around for some time, chances are you've got 404 pages. And a 404 pages is a not found page. So you may have had an original URL and you've moved the page somewhere else. But what may have happened is someone linked to that original page and now that page is broken. So what you can do is use Open Site Explorer, and Open Site Explorer will identify those 404 pages, and it's a simple matter of contacting the webmaster and just asking them to go ahead and change the link to the appropriate page. Another thing you can do is look at competitors' links, and if they have a link from a site, you should too. So a couple of link building tools. Check My Links is a Chrome browser extension. It's a really good tool to use, and it will help you identify broken links not only on your site but on other sites. So if the broken link is on another site, the technique that we use is contact that webmaster, let them know they have broken links, and while they're in there fixing that link, would you mind adding my link? So it's a really good technique and it works quite often. So a couple of link building tools. Fresh Web Explorer will help you find brand mentions, competitor mentions, and keyword mentions. Bulk URL Opener is a really good productivity tool. We use that quite often when we're trying to open multiple websites at one time. A couple more good tools are Guest Post Labs Query Generator. It will actually do advanced queries that will help you find guest blogging opportunities, and it will help you uncover niche sites that relate back to you. Another really good tool is actually using Google Alerts. You can just put your keywords in and Google will notify you of any updates based on the frequency that you request. So you can fix the problems that you have, you can continue to do link building, but then the last part of what I want to talk about is content. And most of of the internet marketers right now are kind of screaming at their clients and potential clients with all the advertising. I recently read an article that we're inundated with about 1 million marketing messages a year. I didn't really believe that, but I happened to stop for gas the night I read that post, and I realized that even on the gas, at the gas station, we're being inundated with ads. So realize that consumers don't really care about your products or services. They don't care how much money that you spent on your website. They don't care about your branded content or your newest commercial or billboard. They really don't care about you, but what they do care about is themselves. They care about saving time, trouble, and effort. They care about saving money. Mostly they care about themselves, their problems, and their needs. So nowadays, relationships are actually created with information, not people. So content marketing is all about providing the information that people need to make decisions on their time, so it's producing useful, relevant content. So content marketing is actually a term that was developed in 2007 by Joe Pelusi from Content Marketing Institute. And this is a graph from Google Trends which shows the search volume based on content marketing. And you can see that search trend didn't really take off until 2011, which actually coincides with the first Panda and Penguin updates. And you can see that more and more people are interested in content marketing. In fact, content marketing has become the top priority for a lot of companies. In 2013, 39% of companies say it's the top priority, and that's actually up from 29% in 2012. So really, content marketing is about producing useful content for customers without interrupting or selling them. It's helping them become more informed before they buy, and it's also about delivering consistent, ongoing, valuable information so you can earn their business and their loyalty. To tell you how important content is, this website, Carvana, is a site where you can buy a car start to finish, including financing, and they did a survey and discovered that 94% of people who are going to buy a car do research on the internet prior to buying, and that they spend up to 15 hours doing research before the purchase. So really, great content works on its own behalf, and it can spread and persuade and convert people without your help, just by the virtue of being relevant and useful. But one thing to note about content, it's not a 30-day ROI. You can't make your traffic grow dramatically in just 30 days. You have to look at it as a long-term payoff. But the payouts can be huge. These next two slides are actually from HubSpot survey, where they surveyed over 6,000 websites, and they discovered that sites with 100 to 200 pages generate 2.5 times more leads than sites that have 50 or fewer pages. The question you want to ask yourself is, what kind of revenue impact would 2.5 times more leads mean to your company? And then sites that blog 15 times or more per month, they get 5 times more leads than websites that don't blog. At your current conversion levels, what would 5 times the traffic mean to your website? So think about that. We would actually like you to think like a publisher. Publishers think long-term. They have a plan. They try to identify opportunities. They know months ahead of time what it is they're going to publish and what kind of content they're going to publish. It takes so far that they actually have editorial calendars that they produce for a January through December time frame. And one of the things that we recommend to our clients, that is in addition to that annual calendar, that they have a rolling 90-day calendar that has topics and titles and content formats, whether it's going to be text or graphics or infographics, that will help them as they publish. The link at the bottom here is actually to Vertical Measures, where you can download our editorial calendar. So really, it's about your content footprint and expanding that content footprint. That is what's going to resonate in 2014 and beyond, because the more keyword-rich content you develop and publish, the bigger your content footprint and the better chance that you'll have of being found by the search engines. And we actually recommend that you click this button often. And finally, the best time to start a content marketing program is actually 5 years ago, and the second best time is now. So for 2014 and beyond, determine if you have a problem, fix it, audit your website, and do the basic SEO, build high-quality links, and publish content frequently that will help you earn high-quality links and help you get found in search.
Great. Thanks, Mike. I know we kind of got a lot of information in there, so we're going to have some time for questions. So if you have any questions and haven't asked me already, use the question applet on your interface or tweet us with the hashtag VMWebinar. So our first question is from Brian, and he asks, how likely is it that you'll get a Webmaster Tools unnatural links message if that's the case?
Actually, the manual penalties come from the web spam team. If you have unnatural links, there's a good chance that you'll get that message. We've actually had quite a few clients come to us because they got that manual message in their Webmaster Tools.
Great. And on the second one is, are there any website free analytics services for website navigation and structure?
Sure, there's lots of those. I don't have any in particular right now. If you want, Quinn can capture your email address and I can get back to you on that. But absolutely, there's a lot of free tools out there that you can use to help you develop your site.
Great. So we have a lot of questions coming in now, so we'll try to get as many as we can. We have a question from Janet. Do videos on your business's YouTube channel count as a blog post in terms of your slide where you mentioned it gives you 5 times the number of leads?
Actually, if you publish the video on your site and on your YouTube channel, that does count. So we actually recommend that you publish on your site. And one of the things that we do to take it a step further is when we publish on our site, we also do transcriptions of the content on the video. So that will help you as well.
Great. Another question from Lauren. She asked, what should we do for managing product pages content on huge e-commerce sites? This is thousands of product pages with similar content to competitor sites.
That is always the challenge. And one of the things that I'm sure most of you have discovered is that if you're looking for a particular product, you'll go from one site to the next and the content is almost exactly the same. So some of the things that you can do is actually take that original manufacturer's or product content and expand on it. You can add photos to that, additional photos that you also put alt tags on that will help you as well. Those are some of the things that you can do to help you expand those product pages. And in some cases, you may want to do a no-follow on some of those pages where they'll remain in the index, but they're a no-follow. And if you need more specifics on that, Quinn can capture your email address and I can follow up with you on that. But it's a long explanation.
For sure. Another question from Greg in terms of content. He asked, for a small business with limited resources, what are some good ways to generate the amount of content you suggest on a regular basis? And I know this is a tricky question to answer.
You know, actually that's a question that comes up really frequently when we do our content marketing workshops. And we are actually a small business, Vertical Measures. We now have about 40 people on staff. And what we do is we ask our staff to write the content that's on our website. So if you've been to our content, almost all of the content that's produced there is done by our staff. So we engage people who are subject matter experts in our company, and we spiff them an amount that kind of helps a little bit. But you might just want to look internally to start with. Another thing that you can do is if you have manufacturers or vendors that are associated with your service or product, you could actually ask them to contribute content. And if you're on Twitter or G+ and you're following people, someone who's in your niche or in your category, oftentimes they're trying to build their online reputation, and you could actually ask them to participate by guest blogging for you. So those are a couple of quick ideas.
Yeah, and I would add to that too is I work with a lot of our staff here to do the content that we publish on our blogs, and really your staff is the best source to get content generation ideas too. We regularly poll our staff to say, give us 5 questions you get from clients, and that's how we come with our topic ideas. So they're really, really a great resource. We have a question from Ismail. He says, since we aren't going to get keyword data in analytics anymore, does this function even still work, or there'll still be a need to include keywords in our metadata?
Keywords and metadata are not as important as they used to be. As a basic SEO technique, you may want to include those. There are other ways to determine what kind of content will resonate with your audience as opposed to using the keyword data. In fact, I just looked at SlideShare this morning, and there's a guy named Mike King who just posted a SlideShare deck about how to get around the not included or keyword not included issue. And I read it this morning. It's actually a great slide deck. It'll give you some really great ideas about what to think about in terms of the topics and what kind of content you want to generate for your site.
Great. We have one more question, so we'll take it from James. He asks, I'm a small business owner and real estate broker. My monthly budget for SEO is $1,000. What is the best way to direct that type of budget for the biggest ROI in your opinion?
Well, it depends on your immediate need. If you need to see immediate traffic so you can get immediate conversions, you might want to consider pay-per-click because that is a quick way to get traffic to your site. If you have a long-term horizon where you want to build your traffic over time, I strongly recommend content marketing because every time you publish a piece of content, it becomes an asset to your company. And the content that you're going to create is evergreen. In that I mean that it's going to reside on your site until you take it down. And as you make your content footprint bigger, it gives the search engines opportunities to find you more often and grow your traffic over time. And if you remember that slide that I showed earlier, is that websites with 100 to 200 pages have 2.5 times the leads as sites that only have 50 pages or less. So if you can get to that threshold, you'll notice that you'll have sustained leads over time as opposed to using pay-per-click, because as soon as you stop pay-per-click, those leads will stop immediately as well.
Great. Thanks, Mike. And I know we still have a couple more questions that have been asked, but we'll try to reach out to you individually and also post them when we send out the recording tomorrow so you can get your answers. But I did want to mention, because we've talked a lot about penalties and recovering from a penalty, and we do have a webinar coming up next month. It's January 16th, where our Director of SEO Services will be expanding on that topic. So he'll be talking about how to successfully respond to a manual Google penalty. The registration is open for that at verticalmeasures.com/webinars. And lastly, we did mention that we're going to have some exciting news for a free guide. So we just launched today, actually, our complete Google penalty recovery kit. So I know this was a big topic with Mike, and we're building on this in our webinar. So it's a free download on our website, 30 pages, a free guide. We have templates in there for your reconsideration requests, anything that you would need to help you get through a penalty and regain your traffic. So you can head over to vert.ms/Google Recovery, or just go to verticalmeasures.com, and it's right on our homepage. So you can see that there, download it, it's free, and we really hope it does help take you into 2014 on a really strong foot. So I think that's all the time we have for today, but thank you for joining, and thank you, Mike, too, for giving us all of your expertise.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.